What's going on, everyone? It's Sean from All Things EV, and we've got another installment of the Sean and Gally Show. This has been something that's very well requested. A lot of people really like this, where we just jam and talk about Tesla and electric vehicles. So, Gally, welcome back to my channel.
What up, Sean Mitchell's channel? Great to be back. We have so much to cover now.
We do. You know, last time we chatted, it was before the Cybertruck event. Now we were there on the 21st. We saw it in person. You got a test ride. We both saw it up close and personal, and it's interesting. So I think we're going to start off there. Let's go ahead and talk about our opinions, our first impressions of the truck. Like, I'd love for you to talk about, like, when that thing first drove up on stage, what went through your head?
This is so ugly. What did that do? That was my first reaction, was like, oh my God, what is, like, literally, what is this thing? Like, who gave this the green light? But then as the more I saw it in the test drive line drive past me, it just kind of grew on me more and more. And it's one of those things that, like, you look at it the 10th time and you love it, and then you start looking at trucks on the road, and it starts to, like, grow on you more and more. But at first I was just kind of in total shock and rattled, because it was just so different and not what I was expecting, something different, but not at that level.
Same. I mentioned this in my video, so I apologize if you've watched this and it sounds repetitive, but I thought that we were all involved participating in, like, a huge punked, Ashton Kutcher punked episode where, like, Ashton Kutcher gets out of the pickup truck and is like, "Hey, just kidding, guys. Here's the real truck. We gotcha. Isn't that funny?" Like, I really truly thought. I think that there was a rumor going around before the event, amongst everyone waiting to get in, that they had two trucks that they were going to show, or maybe it was like two things, and then I just interpreted it as two trucks. But they drove the first one up, and it was like, oh my God, that is not what I thought I was going to see. So it was shock for sure. I know a lot of people, just like you, were stunned, and then it ended up growing on them.
Does it grow on you?
No. No, it's, well, maybe a little bit. Here's what I expect. And this is the same thing that happened with the AirPods when they first came out. I thought that they looked absolutely ridiculous, like, just completely silly. These, it was like someone cut off the cords of headphones, iPhone headphones, and were wearing them around. I thought that looked ridiculous, but lo and behold, I have a set of AirPods now that I wear nonstop, and I can't imagine going back to a corded set of headphones. So I expect for my experience to be very similar with the truck, in that it takes a little while to get used to, because it is so different and so stark from what we are all used to with pickup trucks. And there's no doubt about the performance, in my opinion. I think the performance is fantastic. It's bleeding edge. It's the best technology. It will be the best technology on the market when they start producing this. But it's such a shock to the brain to see something so different.
Totally. And one of the things that I thought was so incredible is it was actually very aerodynamic as well. And we can talk about that whole exoskeleton in a bit, but that's recently coming out, that the drag coefficient is like 0.3, or that's what Elon is targeting, which would be insane, almost as good as Tesla's other products. So the design was so boxy that originally, I even said in my video, I was like, there's no way this is aerodynamic. Like, the batteries must be awesome. But apparently it actually is. So the more I kind of unpacked the design and realized that it was super functional, and from, like, a manufacturing aerodynamic standpoint, durability standpoint, I was like, whoa, like, it's not just about looking cool. It's actually about, like, practicality and usefulness.
Yeah. It's interesting to see. I've tried to follow a lot of the Cybertruck videos on YouTube, particularly people who don't own a Tesla, because that really gives me insight into what the real world thinks, and not just people who follow Tesla. So it's been interesting to me to see some of these people who maybe are traditional truck owners who share their opinions. Some of them are, positive, some of them are negative. But one thing is for sure, this is a really, really fascinating market, the pickup truck market, in particular for North America. I think my impression is, Europe is not a pickup truck market, a big pickup truck market, but Australia is. Maybe Central and South America are. But you know, this is what I love about it, is that it's so polarizing. It's such a polarizing truck, and everyone is talking about it, whether they hate it or love it. And to me, that's the true mark of something that has a really good potential of being successful.
Definitely. I think the polarizing is a good sign.
Let's talk about competition, both in the traditional, gasoline and diesel market, and also electric pickup truck market. What has you thinking and talking, like, how is this going to match up against some of these other trucks?
Yeah. I mean, I think if you're building a pickup truck, you're stressing a lot more on performance. So that's what, like the mindset of those vehicle buyers. And so I think there's a lot more importance on the technology of the batteries. And I think that's what, like, Tesla's lead in the skateboard is what even enabled them to do this. Like the Cybertruck 2022 500-mile range for $70,000. We're talking about a 500-mile range EV in 2.5 years for 70 grand. The Model S right now is 80 grand and goes 373 miles. And so the cost and range there, I think, is going to be unparalleled. So I think if you assume everything is going electric from a pickup standpoint, there's so much importance and focus on the battery technology. And that's, what we've been talking about constantly, why we're so passionate about researching that, because it really spreads to every part of Tesla's business. I think the pickup truck is really going to accentuate that advantage, because think about it, it's not just about range. It's about, like, okay, now you're towing this huge load. You have to manage the battery with that. Like, I just think Ford to build an electrified F-150 is going to be at such an uphill battle from a cost and performance standpoint, that's why the competition, to me, I just think no one else is even ready or prepared to build an electric pickup. Like, they just don't have the technology and cost and manufacturing ability, but Tesla is actually ready.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be incredibly disruptive, I anticipate. And like I said, I think that people will adjust to the actual styling and design of it. People will get used to it. It's different. It's not, a lot of people say that it's ugly, but I think what people are really responding to is how different it is. So once people get used to that and adjust to how different it looks, people will settle into the actual functionality of the pickup truck. So, of course, range is really important. Towing capacity. What is the range when towing? Max capacity. How quickly can that truck recharge when it has to stop at a supercharger? The 250 plus kilowatt charge rate that they talked about implies that they've got more ceiling to go in terms of how quickly the battery packs can charge. So I think that's interesting. I think that the battery technology very likely is using whatever magic that Maxwell has, whether that's the DBE tech, or whether that's supercapacitors, or maybe a combination of the two. I know some people online who also talk a lot about Tesla say that supercapacitors are not going to be used, but I'm still leaning towards them, Tesla, finding a way to work those into some of their vehicles. So, that once you settle into the stark design of it, it really then falls on what is the performance, what is the functionality, will this work as a functional pickup truck, and what people use it for. So the utility piece as well is another interesting one. The size of the pickup truck bed, the outlets, the 120 and 240 outlets to be able to power power tools and generators and so on. I'm really curious to know what size battery pack this is going to be. I mean, it looks like the length of the truck is pretty large, and so it makes me wonder. I mean, are we talking about a battery pack that's north of 200 kilowatt hours? What do you think?
Well, one thing you mentioned there that a lot of people, I think, is a really interesting clue is the charge rate. I don't know if you could explain that to me, because that's something I'm not as familiar with, but the charge rate, the 250 number they specified plus, what makes that so intriguing?
Well, we already know Tesla's talked about the 250 kilowatt charge rate for the Model 3. The Model 3 has the ability to do that if you're at a supercharger that can facilitate that higher charge rate. And so what it has done, it has cut the charge rate in half from 0
Sorry,
to 80%.
83.
What's that?
That's the V. Those are the V3 superchargers.
Exactly. Yes. So it takes it from 0 to 80%. It used to be with version, I guess it's technically 2 of superchargers, where it would take 30 minutes to charge 80%. With V3 supercharging at that 250 kilowatt charge rate, it's now cut down to 15 minutes. So you're getting pretty close to parity with what it would take to fill up a gasoline or diesel truck, who that they typically have somewhere between 22 and 36 gallon tanks to power their truck. So if they can reduce it even more, I think that's really impressive. If it's a bigger battery pack, my guess is they probably can increase the charge rate a little bit.
Wow. Yeah, that's really exciting.
And if the battery pack is going to be depleted faster when trucks are towing, you might want a charge rate that's a little bit faster to help sort of combat that objective, in my opinion. My hope is that they've figured out a way to improve that piece as well, because I think that there was some chatter and there was some testing done. I know there's probably multiple tests on YouTube where a Model X is towing, and the range on it when it's at its max capacity towing rate is cut nearly in half. So the range is cut nearly in half. So I really hope that they've done some work on that. The 3 motors is probably going to help. Quite frankly, I'm surprised that they didn't go 4 motors to help with that as well.
And that's something that, talking about competition, Rivian does have 4 motors. And if
Yes.
you have any insight onto what, kind of design choices that means? I'm assuming the tri-motor design is the same as the Model S kind of plaid mode package that they've been referencing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm as I said, I'm surprised that they didn't go quad motor because it just distributes the power even better. My guess is that's my assumption. More motors should equal more control over the vehicle, power distributed equally between more motors. Of course, you're adding more weight by adding an additional motor, but you're also adding more power, and you should be able to distribute that power. I mean, the semi. This is the whole reason why I sort of went with my prediction about the truck having 4 motors. It's because the semi truck has 4 motors, and you've got better control and power when you can distribute that control over more motors than less.
Yeah, and the more I think about the truck, I've kind of been thinking it like, is it really even a pickup, or is that the right way to think about it? Or is it this sort of like rugged autonomous vehicle platform? And that the more and more I think about it, that's kind of, and I'm like, I have a Moonshot Monday that I want to make about the cyber van, that hopefully will be out soon. But it's kind of this idea of like, wait, could they change the steel, this origami stainless steel, to make a bigger back, cargo vans for like delivering packages? Because the price is actually pretty comparable. And when you talk about the total cost of ownership of this vehicle, with maintenance savings, with how durable the glass is, with your charging it up with electricity, not gas, I think the total cost of ownership is really compelling to make this like a fleet vehicle, even beyond just pickup fleets, for delivery fleets, for the cyber van. So I think as a new vehicle platform, this is a really interesting move for Tesla, and it's much bigger than just a one-off quirky pickup truck. I think this is truly like just like a new platform, and that platform has potential to sell hundreds of thousands of vehicles a year. And I think maybe not all of them are pickup trucks.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it would be really interesting for them to create an SUV on this platform. The Model X is nice, but even over the weekend, I got an email from a Model X owner here in the Denver area that was having issues that I know this is not the first time that I've heard these types of issues with the Model X. And so maybe with the Cybertruck platform, they've got the ability to have a clean slate with a more dynamic, more functional SUV. For example, a third row of the Model X is not very useful for a grown adult, especially one who's my height. It's not very comfortable to sit in that third row. There's not enough leg room. There's not enough headroom, and so then you're sort of like you can only fit smaller people and kids. So I wonder, part of me wonders if not only this like last mile delivery van potential is a possibility. Maybe they create a brand new SUV that's got more storage, more seating, similar to what Rivian has done with the R1S. The R1S has more storage and seating than what the Model X does right now.
Interesting. Yeah, and this whole cyber vehicle platform. Sorry, this whole cyber vehicle platform is really interesting to me because the whole idea of the exoskeleton seems to be an entirely new way to build cars or think of cars. And Elon Musk kind of described it as the future when he was comparing it to how airplanes used to be the same kind of way until they moved all the mass to the exterior. And that's sort of what they've done with this pickup truck. And so that brings up a lot of questions for me about safety, which I've seen a lot of people mention of like, does that remove the crumple zone? Does that change safety? But I'm also thinking like, is this a new paradigm for vehicle about how vehicles are going to be built? And what does that mean? You know, is every vehicle with curved edges now like a thing of the past?
Yeah, it's funny because we're naturally sort of flowing in between these topics that we've agreed to talk about for this recording, and I think it's beautiful and wonderful. Um, I don't know enough about the material science and the production of this exoskeleton and the cold rolled steel. I want to do a little bit more digging into it, and I try to look for the email before we hit record. But I want to say thank you to the person who sent both of us some research on the rolled steel and the types of production. I don't want to say the actual name of it because I want to sort of give us the best chance of putting out this content before anyone else does. But thank you to this person who sent that to us and all the research that he did. I do think it's really interesting. I do wonder if this, in a lot of ways, it seems to make sense in terms of production costs. It appears like it's going to be lower. It's going to take less to produce the actual body of the vehicle, and so there's not going to be any actual panels. That's the frame. The frame is going to be the actual thing that they start producing. So that's really interesting to me. I do think that there is some innovation there, and I do wonder if this is one of those things where we'll look back in 10 years and say, "My God, this was the shift from this body on frame design that the automotive industry is used to this new sort of exoskeleton, approach that Tesla is pioneering." I guess some of the obstacles that I think Tesla's going to have to overcome is because it's a new production process, it's probably going to be expensive initially. My guess is steel in general, it's been around for a while, so it's not like, I'm sure that the cost to get steel is probably pretty low, but the cold rolled process, the 30 times cold rolled process, I think is really interesting. The making of the actual vehicle, I think, will be less expensive, but there's got to be some innovations there, and I'm really curious if SpaceX and Tesla can sort of tag team to try and either get the cost really low to produce the actual materials, and or I wonder if this might be a good business case for Tesla and or SpaceX to actually buy a steel mill or company.
And I've heard a bunch of theories that this is actually a way for them to combine their steel purchasing power and drop the price, Tesla and SpaceX. But even just taking a step back, it's like they've collaborated. We're always talking about how Elon Musk has amazing engineers. SpaceX is such a resource. This is the first time that I can think of we're seeing such a strong crossover in technology on a consumer product for Tesla that was developed at SpaceX. Like, this is cutting edge material science that they built for Mars, and now we're bringing it to the automotive industry. So I think it's really cool to see that kind of synergy come into play with that. But honestly, I need to do more homework into this material because it's so complicated. And like you said, like, we got that email and it just seems like a totally different way to build the frame of a vehicle than anyone else is doing. And I have to think there's pros and cons with that, but on a net basis, there must be a lot of reasons why Tesla chose to do it this way and usher in this sort of new paradigm of how to build vehicles.
I agree, and I don't think it's just a avant-garde, brash design choice. I think that there really are some strong business considerations with this technology. I think that there's a lot more than meets the eye with what we're seeing here. And over the next several months, as you and I dive into the technology, I think that we'll share this stuff out as we learn more, just like what we did in 2019 with the Maxwell technology. Like, that was, in my opinion, that was sort of the theme for my focus and energy, and I think it was for you as well. We just dove as deep as possible into the battery tech and the Maxwell piece. So maybe this is the next, then maybe this is the 2020 theme. Like, how is this going to disrupt the automotive industry, this production process? How's it going to impact cost of producing the vehicle? And are the margins going to be significantly better than what anyone has ever seen in the automotive industry?
Yeah. I mean, all that Maxwell research, I think, though, paid off, and in many ways is the perfect kind of like clue to this vehicle, because to me, it's even the range isn't that eye-popping. It's really just the price. And for that 500-mile range, is I'm thinking like, this is a really big deal. It means that Tesla's figured out, or their roadmap is that they can produce a lot of batteries with extremely high performance for extremely low cost in kind of a very impressive way by 2022. And so I'm starting to think of like, what does that mean for their other products? And so, we've been thinking about this next generation battery tech, and now it looks like we got some specs to work off too. And it's like, wow, like if this truck can get 500 miles, like shouldn't the Model S or shouldn't the Model X if they're selling for 100 grand? And what does that mean for the power pack? And, every piece of Tesla's product line could be impacted by this future battery tech that was displayed in the truck.
You know how when Tesla revealed the Model 3, it was very different in many ways. The styling of the exterior sort of followed similar design cues to the Model S and X, but the interior was a stark departure from what we were used to with the interior of what we still now know as Model S and X interior. The single screen, it had the the refresh of the HVAC system. There were a lot of things like the push button door handles and the squirrel wheel balls on the steering wheel. A lot of things looked very, very different. Part of me has been thinking, I wonder if this sort of angular, bold and brash design approach for the Cybertruck is where Tesla is heading for their existing vehicle fleet with the Model S, X, and 3. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I don't know if I think you're right in some ways, and they'll build more cyber products, if that makes sense, with this look. I don't know if it will dominate the whole Tesla design aesthetic going forward, but I mean, if I have to think of this stainless steel thing as just a better way to build the frame of a vehicle, then Tesla's going to reinvent all of their vehicles to look like this. And I've already seen some renderings of like a cyber hatchback and it looks pretty cool, honestly. So very interesting. And like, I guess I'm a big fan of just the innovation here and just the kind of boldness and going 0 to 1. Like, whether we like it or not, just the kind of being so brash to be able to do that and start from scratch and say like, I was watching this one video that said like the 12 Wings Productions, who said it was engineered, not designed. And they literally they were like, how can we get the lowest drag? How can we, make the hardest body? How can we do it for the lowest price? How can we tow the most? And they didn't care about the look until the very end. And then that just sort of like how it happened. And I think that, why do people buy pickups? Because it has awesome performance, because it's super rugged, because it can do all this stuff, not because it looks cooler than the GMC or the Toyota one. So I don't know. I think we're scratching the surface on something much bigger than just the Cybertruck, but I don't know how to answer it. And, I'm curious what you think. Do you think they're going to reinvent cyber versions of every car? Or?
Yeah, I mean, similar to what I mentioned before about this, I think it's more than meets the eye. I think that there was a strong business consideration with this design. It's not just meant to be a Cybertruck. I think that's the sort of red herring or coy is, yeah, this looks different, but if this truck sells as well as what it appears like based on the interest, the chatter, and the current orders, could they roll this into their other lines? I mean, like to see a Model S or X with this angular design approach, if there's a strong business case for it, and if there is a significant cost reduction in this new approach, I think so. I think so, but time will tell. And as we sort of dig deep into this technology, I think that we'll be more certain about that.
And it's crazy to me how I've been buying a lot of stock since the Cybertruck unveiling, because the stock actually went down. How the media sort of misread this situation, because for me, the amount of how weird and different it looked, for the amount of hype, I was expecting it to break the internet, but I wasn't expecting it even did so more than I was expecting. So I feel like Tesla's really just shown they've like kind of hit this weird nail on the head culturally with this product that I think I was totally not expecting. I mean, the demand is so, so strong that I personally am like, wow, did Tesla really just launch another vehicle and that got $10 billion worth of annual demand or more? And kind of Wall Street's like, oh, whoops, the stock's down. This was a disaster. I'm like, what? Like, it was just such a big disconnect that I feel like Tesla's like, I don't know, it seems like they've kind of leveled up as a company with this whole product line, like the technology, the confidence, just coming from a position of strength, not needing to bet the company on it. I don't know. I just was extremely impressed with the way they pulled this off and the way even with the glass shattering. And so it's kind of, I think mentally in my head, I'm like, wow, this is a real leveling up moment for Tesla as a company.
It was a huge risk, I think, for them to show this truck off, and maybe in hindsight, maybe that's why Elon Musk was hedging on, well, if people don't like it, then we'll make a more traditional looking truck. But
Yeah.
it was a huge risk, but it was a stroke of genius. It was a masterpiece, the way that they did it, the way that it shocked everyone and got them talking for good or bad. I mean, when you have other companies, not even in the automotive industry, talking about the truck, whether they like it, like the Lego thing. I shared a link on
Yeah.
Twitter about how Lego was sort of jabbing jabbing Tesla in making a Lego version of it, and it was just, that was the moment where I'm like, OMG, this is working. This is a moment in pop culture. This is a moment in history that we're all going to look back. I suspect, I could be wrong, but this is a moment in history where we're going to look back in 10 years and think, this was the inflection point where we began to see truck design in particular change to look a little bit more like the Cybertruck. So let's go ahead and move on, because we've talked 30 minutes about the Cybertruck. There's some other things that that I think we should cover, that I think people will be interested in. So Elon Musk recently said on Twitter about some new tech announcements in 2020. He said, quote, "Cybertruck is our last product unveil for a while, but there will be some mostly unexpected technology announcements next year," end quote. So what comes to mind when you hear that quote from Elon?
Battery Powertrain Investor Day is going to be like the most important day in, I think, Tesla's 2020 by far, or just for us people following the technology. So that's what he's talking about. Something to be unveiled there. I know you and me have been bouncing back theories. So now I feel like I'm kind of back at ground zero, where I have like 4 theories of what could be announced, but I have zero confidence in like which one, or even if I'm right at all. But Tesla has better batteries coming than what we know of. They're already the best in the industry. They're going to get better, either in terms of lasting longer or be higher energy density, maybe a little bit of both. But the biggest innovation, I think, the more and more I've thought about this, is the ability to just manufacture a ton of batteries at an extremely like low cost. That is what Tesla's getting ready to announce. Whether they're taking it in-house, whether they have a new partner, who knows? But I think that is the game changer, and that has been the bottleneck for EV production for Tesla and for every single other EV company. And so they are on the cusp of announcing how they solve that bottleneck.
I like the thought, and to build on that, I think I'm still bullish on the idea of Tesla opening up their older generation batteries to other automakers. To me, that's interesting. You know, if they can continue to push down the cost, then everyone benefits, and it contributes towards their mission of sustainable energy and transport. So to me, that I would not be surprised if that was either tied to this battery powertrain and investor day, or something that we hear about sometime in 2020, which is this redux, this revisiting of Tesla partnering together with other automotive companies, traditional automotive companies in particular, because they're so far behind. Tesla, for those that haven't been following Tesla for since the very beginning, Tesla used to sell their battery tech to Toyota and Daimler, and those used to be in their vehicles. So that was a way that Tesla did leverage their technology to generate revenue in the past. Does it make sense now? Maybe Tesla needs that revenue. Maybe they don't, but for certain, it's going to contribute towards this overall mission and underscore this point that Tesla is not about making tons of money, but about but about moving forward sustainable energy in transportation. So that's a really interesting thing to me that I've sort of got in the back of my mind, like, are we going to hear something? We're going to hear a partnership with VW. Elon and the VW CEO seem to be pretty chummy. They're meeting, and CEOs of competitive automakers just don't meet for no reason, and they don't meet just to hang out. They're talking about something, and it does make me wonder if that's a part of what Elon is talking about when he refers to some of these unexpected technology announcements.
And why I think we could be close, and I made a Moonshot Monday about this, and actually because of a friend of mine who's like kind of a banker dude, and he's involved with this whole world, and they're making it work on the spreadsheet level. Like Adam Jonas is asking about this on the Fiat and the Tesla call, because this is like a no-brainer for the analysts to plug in of like, Tesla has this tech, why aren't they licensing out to every other car company that's desperate for it? Like if the bankers are starting to pitch this to Elon Musk to be like, why are we not doing this? This is a no-brainer to like immediately create all this shareholder. I mean, why is this a big deal for those? Just financially, to explain it quickly, it's like, okay, instead of Tesla putting up 50 billion or 10 billion to build 5 more gigafactories around the world and wait 5 to 7 years to build those and get all the profits, they can essentially license their tech, not put up that 10 billion, get those factories built quicker, but still as a licensing fee, capture that a significant portion of that gross profit. So you've essentially accelerated this timeline of cash flows from Tesla's technology if they license it out. So financial engineering wise, this actually makes a lot of sense and should be done immediately if you can get the sort of companies in place. So that's why I think like, wait, there's some serious potential here. And Tesla's proven they can build a skateboard. They've proven the degradation of the Model 3 battery pack is super minimal. They've proven it works. So now is kind of the time to really replicate this tech. And I would think this is Amazon and Apple's last chance to buy Tesla, because once they do something like that, the value is going to go up. They're going to get way too expensive. Everybody's going to have the tech. If you want to make a play on mobility with AI, with self-driving and the batteries, I think this is like Apple is desperate for that skateboard tech. So I'm like, in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, they could license it to all these other auto OEMs, or is this the time where like Apple finally buys Tesla? I think that's like what Tim Cook needs to do, and he could still afford them. But because like you said, I just think the skateboard has so much value.
I think that I don't think there's a chance that Apple's going to buy Tesla.
They should. They should. I don't think they will either, but like, yeah.
I mean, everything that we know about Elon Musk, he is he's what did they? I read an article that said that he's not a micromanager; he's a nano manager. Like he is one step, above a micromanager, and he wants the control. He wants to make sure that everything is done specifically the way that he wants. And there's probably a little bit of paranoia there, I would imagine, with Elon Musk. Like, what if someone is working behind the scenes of one of these other companies to acquire Tesla, and then, put it away, put it out of business. It's interesting. I mean, I think that the traditional automakers have the most to lose right now if they don't jump on board. Tesla's so far ahead. Maybe some of these newer companies, like Rivian, for example, but maybe Lucid Motors, they've got some battery tech. They've been working on it. They don't have the old school mentality or old culture that they have to fight against. I think here's a really good reason why I think that this could happen. I'll give you a really good sort of like real life use case, real time. So, you and I both got a chance to see the Ford Mach-E at the LA Auto Show. And, at face value, the range on it is quite impressive, right? 300 miles for their top end, super cool. Seems like it's going to compete pretty well with the Model Y. The interior looks pretty great. Like I didn't have any like visceral reactions about the interior being ugly. It's okay. I'm not quite crazy about the physical volume dial on the touchscreen, but when you drill down and you look at the actual battery tech of what Ford is using, they're using LG Chem. I did confirm that with their PR department for their batteries, and they're using pouch. But the real telltale sign of how far away Ford is that they're using nearly 100 kilowatt hour battery pack to get 300 miles. Tesla is going to be able to use a 75 kilowatt hour pack with the Model Y. So what does that tell you? It tells you that um, the Mach-E is going to be heavier. It's going to be more weight, I suspect. It's going to be a heavier car. So it needs a larger battery pack to go the same distance as what Tesla does with a smaller battery pack. And so it's also going to likely cost more for Ford. I'm extremely skeptical of Ford saying that this is going to be a profitable vehicle from day one, because the most expensive part of the vehicle is the battery pack. And they're using a massive battery pack, nearly 100 kilowatt hour pack, to get only 300 miles of range. So to me, that's a pretty good sign that some of these traditional automakers will need to leverage Tesla's battery tech.
Yeah, that's excellent evidence. And just the point on the profitability of that was just, it blew my mind when I heard the CEO, Jim Hackett, say that, because he said from a contribution margin standpoint, if you don't assume any of the depreciation and amortization costs, which is totally non-GAAP, which if Tesla said, they would have been like laughed out of the room for claiming that that was actually building a profitable vehicle program. Like nobody does their accounting like that. It was just, so that just to me is ridiculous. But the point, so we know that the 300-mile pack, Model Y and the Mach-E, the one's 100 kilowatt hours, one's 75 kilowatt hours. So Ford had to pay for 25 more kilowatt hours of battery, right? So we know that they're paying for more batteries. There's another layer to this, which is that cost per kilowatt, Tesla's way lower. So you have a double effect there. And this isn't like confirmed because Tesla's not saying what their cost is. LG Chem and Mach-E aren't saying what their cost is. But if you know anything about the industry, Tesla's vertically integrated. They have the cheapest tech. You're buying it from a third party who's building it in China, probably. So, it's not only like the technology's worse, but they're paying way more for a crappier performance. So there's multiple levels to where this is an extremely inefficient model.
I totally agree. Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how this unfolds next year. The Battery and Powertrain Investor Day is going to be something to talk about for sure. The other thing that I haven't heard a lot about is Dojo. That's something that could be an additional announcement in 2020. It seems like this will have a fundamental impact and improvement on this other piece that Tesla's working on, which is the full self-driving, the autonomy piece. They get this machine learning AI thing going, and it's lights out. I don't know of anyone else who's doing this, and maybe there are, but to me, this seems like a fundamental piece of autonomy, which is this like massive amounts of data and information that they're able to compile and to teach the machine learning about what to do in these situations, and then distribute it out to the fleet.
Yeah, no, I still think nobody is even remotely has a good strategy to solve self-driving except for Tesla. If you were going to train an algorithm to self-drive, you would need millions of humans to train it and like be constantly refining it and iterating. That's what Tesla's doing. And the more I thought about, like, I was in a Model 3 this weekend about how we're doing autopilot, and the second I disengage, that's triggering a memo back to Tesla HQ to analyze why I disengaged in that moment. Like, this feedback loop is off and running, and it's already seeing, like, I think the rate of software updates, of improvements, has slowly been accelerating, or that's kind of the vibe I get in the past maybe 6 months to a year. Like with the smart summon thing. And so I think it will take Tesla a lot longer than they say to get there, but they're making extremely good strides. And if we're talking about 2022 for this Cybertruck, like that's kind of coinciding for when this fully self-driving feature hits. And so I heard in a rumor at the event between these two Norwegian guys who are like Hyperchange fans, they kept coming up to me and they said that they talked to Andre Karpathy, and he said that the next generation FSD computer will be in the Cybertruck. So that's something that Elon mentioned on Autonomy Day, is that they have this dope FSD computer, but it's like a chip. They're going to keep iterating and improving on that. And so they already had the second design. Now we know that's going to go into production by 2022. So I actually think we won't get FSD until we get that new version of the computer probably. But I just think that's a whole nother kind of edge. The battery is one revolution, autonomy is one revolution in the space, but the autonomous is a whole nother thing.
Yeah, we're so okay. Transitioning here, we're starting to see a lot more chatter about the Model Y. You had said some things offline before we hit record about production for summertime, so I definitely want to touch on that. But this is something that's really, really exciting, and I think that in addition to that, the fact that Giga Germany they're going to start off with Model Y production. That is really interesting to me, and they're planning on being at production, if I recall, in 2021 for Giga Germany. So compiling all this stuff together, like what are some of your impressions since the last time we talked about a month or a month and a half ago?
Yeah, so I've been getting tips from viewers and stuff that have been talking to Tesla employees that say the Model Y is like starting, they want to do a handful of deliveries by the end of this year. Obviously, I don't even fully believe that, but that sort of lines up with all these puzzle pieces I've been seeing of like Model Y is coming a lot earlier than people realize, like very soon. Clean Technica had a big report 4 months ago, like a big leak that said it was going to ramp production Q1. Then Tesla moved it up to summer 2020. And then I was thinking on the conference call, I was like, wait, I think Elon said, correct me if I'm wrong, but they wanted to get to like 1,000 a week by summer 2020, which means they should be starting, months before that. Remember Model 3, it takes a while for this to ramp. So I think Model Y is around the corner. And as much as we're pumped about Cybertruck, like this is a real move the needle financial product for Tesla. That is about to hit. And so I think we're lining up. We heard Elon on the conference call say Q1 2020 would suck. Q2 would be a little better. Q3, Q4 would be awesome. Why? Because they're going to say that the Model Y is starting production and getting ready in a month or two, and then that's going to kill Model 3 sales for a little bit because everyone's going to be waiting for Model Y. It's going to be a little bit of cannibalization that'll hit in Q1, and then in Q2 maybe lingering. And then once they get Model Y in full force, China full force, Plaid mode Model S and X, the next half of 2020 is sort of this explosion. But anyway, to answer your question, I think all the clues I've been seeing seem to say that Model Y is coming like much sooner than sort of the market consensus.
Yeah, I think personally, for me, the next car that I buy will be a Model Y. Yeah, for very practical reasons. Here in Colorado, we had like 18 inches of snow last week, and it would have been nice to have that ground clearance. Fortunately, I didn't have any issues, but the extra ground clearance is nice, especially when you're in sort of a mountainous state that does get snow. And I just think in terms of what it offers, it's quite spectacular. Now, ask me in 6 months, and maybe Tesla comes out with a new S or X, I might change my mind. But at the moment, this seems to be the most convincing vehicle for me. Contrary to what people would love, I'm not getting a Cybertruck. It's not. Yeah, it's not for me. It's not for me. I'm sorry, everyone. Please don't unsubscribe from my channel. Um, anyway, so I think it's really, really promising, and I think it's the next sort of natural upstep for Tesla to start producing this vehicle. It makes a lot of sense for Europe. It makes a lot of sense for North America. It's the right size for a lot of markets outside of North America, which I think is really, really exciting. So um, I'm excited. I think it's going to have a really nice push on Tesla's bottom line.
So to play devil's advocate, one thing Elon mentioned that he's not worried about is cannibalization, almost defensively, which I think secretly means he is worried about it on the last
I don't
conference call.
believe him when he says that, by the way.
Yeah. So that to me is one thing where Tesla could kind of hiccup, or when I think about like what could go wrong in the near term for Tesla, they don't think about cannibalization for the Model Y correctly. That hurts Model 3 sales more than expected. And these production lines need to be running like the higher capacity. Like you only need to take away a slight amount of capacity, then you're spreading, all this profit over much more fixed costs. And so it's less profitable. So my point is if they Model Y sales impact Model 3 sales more than expected, that could sort of hit Model 3 margin and profitability in the near term. So I don't know. That's kind of one thing I'm watching and very curious about, is because I think a lot of people misread into the Cybertruck. This is the biggest point, I think, when you think about the automotive market, how to analyze demand for these products. Just because the CUV segment is big, the sedan segment is big, the pickup segment is this, like that's looking in the rearview mirror, not based on what's available in the market today. I think people get boxed into looking at that, and that's why they struggle to understand why Tesla's vehicles sell the way they do. I think people want electric cars. Tesla's scratching their head why Model S and X sales are down. I'm like, you guys are idiots. You just cannibalize your own tech with a $40,000 car that people wanted to drive electric. Now there's a $40,000 car they don't need to spend 80 grand. Of course, your 80 grand cars are getting hit. And my dad wanted a Model Y, but he got a Model 3 because the Model Y didn't exist, but he just wanted the Tesla and electric. So I think that's a dynamic that I'm watching very closely, and just I don't think it's like going to be a huge, hiccup or a bad thing for Tesla, but I think it's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out.
There's something else I want to get your opinion of, which is tied to this ramp up of more vehicles, more segments. I still have this question of where are they going to start producing all of this? Are they going to be able to satiate or satisfy North American production at Giga One, or do they need more space? Will they need more space? Part of me is like, the Model Y does share a lot of the same parts. 75% of the parts is a Model 3, so maybe that makes sense. Are they going to be producing less Model S and X, as Elon has said that they're keeping them around for sentimental reasons? Where does all this production happen in North America? I think that they can probably spread out a lot of the pressure and demand by ramping up production in Shanghai, and then when they get the Berlin Giga up. But what are your thoughts about that? And do you also have some questions about how Tesla's going to satisfy all this demand for their cars?
They have floated the rumor of a second gigafactory in the US. I think that's a very far time away, but the clue is that every gigafactory going forward will include battery production and vehicle production, which is not the case for Nevada and Fremont today. So I'm personally thinking they halted all expansion of Gigafactory 1, it seems like, later or mid this year. And that has the whole thing with Panasonic. Are they launching their own new battery cells? I think they bought a big new chunk of land for the Gigafactory a couple years ago. So I think they have a lot of land to expand there. So I've been saying this actually when I was even asking you on the conference call like a year or two ago, like, where are you going to build the Model Y and the Semi? It's got to be at Reno. That's just where the only place you have space, and you're already building the batteries there. So it kind of makes sense. So that would be my guess. I don't know. I honestly think sometimes this gets a little bit like too much speculation in the media of like, we're so like, where are they going to build it? And it's like, who cares? Like, they're going to build the production line somewhere. Like, they'll figure it out. Like, you're going to get the car. It's going to be the same price. Does it really matter?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. They're not even they haven't fully built out Giga One. Yeah. There's still room to grow there. So
Totally. There's so much room.
If they wanted to do vehicle production there, they easily could. The cost would be, the labor cost would be less. Real estate prices, of course, are less. You can probably get construction contractors out for less expensive than you would be for Fremont. There's probably far less red tape. I think Elon has joked about that, but that's one of the other things that's on my mind now that they're starting to produce multiple vehicles. Are they going to do it? Are they going to transfer everything? There are some obstacles, I guess, in terms of talent and skill set for people in the labor force in the Reno area. But maybe they can figure that out and entice people from Fremont to move to Reno. All right, so let's go. So we got about 10 minutes left here. So let's talk about what's the next thing you think Tesla's going to add to their vertical integration. Is it going to be this steel piece, the mining piece? Elon has sort of floated the idea of maybe getting into the mining business. I saw someone on Twitter talk about getting into the rubber and tire business. What do you think? Where will Tesla go next to capitalize on their vertical integration?
I think it's more control over the battery pack itself, which is kind of maybe a boring answer, but the in-house battery cell production, which you and me have been talking about for like a year, but nobody actually thinks that's going to happen in the real world. So if that gets announced, that will be a fundamental game changer and the biggest step in Tesla's vertical integration that we've seen. And frankly, really is a testament to their technology because they're relying on Panasonic. Every other auto company in the world is relying on these third-party battery suppliers. If Tesla just says, screw you, we can do it better, that is an incredible, that's billions of dollars worth of technological value that they brought in-house. That means they have better tech for way cheaper. And the biggest thing that Tesla needs to do is expand battery production from 35 gigawatt hours to a terawatt hour. That's how we solve the climate crisis. That's how they build millions of cars. We need more batteries. And Tesla goes vertical to solve the bottleneck challenges that they have. And so I think the next one is battery cell production. Let's think one layer beyond that. How do we get those raw materials to build those batteries? Does that mean acquiring Redwood Materials, JB Straubel's recycling company? Or does that mean we get into mining? I think that's a 50-50. But yeah, so I don't know. I'm curious what you think, because you threw out a lot of theories there for me. Have any answers?
Yeah, I don't know. I do think that the battery, the cells, the raw materials is definitely a part that probably has not seen innovation in a while. Tesla's been sort of this middleman with the battery cells. And my my understanding is that they are not deep into they're not deep into the raw materials process. I think that they care a lot about. My understanding is they care a lot about making sure that they're sourced ethically, the raw materials. But in terms of innovation, there's probably some cost advantages if they can get in there and figure out how to make it more efficient. If they can control the raw materials and the cost of the raw materials, then they can control the cost of the of the cells and the battery packs. So that is certainly interesting. You brought up something in terms of recycling. That's probably another piece that has an opportunity to see some innovations too. But my guess is Tesla's probably on the front end of that already, because they're the largest producer of lithium batteries. So they probably there probably is some opportunity there. But I think that there's more opportunity on the raw material side. And I'm just going to take a wild guess to say that these companies who've been mining raw materials have been doing it for decades, and they've been doing it the same way for since the very beginning. So could Tesla come in, acquire mining companies and raw material companies, and control a little bit more of that cost at the early stage?
And I think you're on point with this, because Elon does everything for Mars, as crazy and dumb as that sounds. But if you talk about mining in space, the biggest innovation the Boring Company is doing is electrifying the tunnel digging process. And that is because they have Tesla's batteries. That whole battery powertrain tech goes back to this disrupting a whole nother industry there. So I think if Tesla could somehow figure out a way to electrify mining equipment with that same technology, there's sort of like a clear disruptive technological innovation that gives Tesla an edge to make it mine more sustainably, cheaper, faster, more automated. So when I see that, I think you're onto something there, and it has to do a lot with the Boring Company.
I would not be surprised if they start sharing technology, just as we talked about earlier with SpaceX
Well,
and
they
Tesla.
have. The Boring machine runs on Tesla's batteries and powertrains. I'm pretty
Absolutely.
sure they're buying them for that.
You're exactly right. No,
Yeah.
yeah, they're using they're powering those boring machines with Tesla batteries. Absolutely.
So I have another crazy moonshot that we're talking about. This a little bit different, but I think the ATV is a small platform, and I think it got a little really overlooked. I think now that makes it really easy to launch a snowmobile. All these sort of other, maybe this isn't a move the needle thing, but I was not expecting Tesla to get into this, but it looks like they're about to, and it signals that they're willing to modify their battery pack to something smaller. So when I think about licensing their skateboard and their batteries, I'm like, why would you license it to a car company that sucks, that's doing it for the wrong reasons, that's competing with you head on? Why not license it to a company like Arcimoto, who's not competing with you head on, who's made in America, who's doing it for the right reasons? That's awesome. So I don't know. That's just another kind of thing floating in the back of my head of what could Tesla do next that people aren't thinking of. These smaller form factor vehicles. I think the ATV, they don't just do the ATV and then leave it. They're going to sell it as an add-on. They're eventually going to sell it as a standalone. They're going to use that same battery and powertrain for, I think a snowmobile, maybe a boat. I don't know.
I wonder the market potential for that. I wonder if they can make a larger impact on consumer and commercial vehicles. I don't know. I don't know enough about the volume production for some of these recreational vehicles. I know that Nikola Motor, is sort of dipping their toes into that. They've showed off a Wave Runner, as well as I think some quad motor variants, but some off-road ATVs. I'm not sure about the market potential for that, and whether Tesla should be spending their time on that sort of stuff. I'd much rather see them start to use their batteries to get into energy storage, rolling that out, homes, commercial buildings, powering everything with solar and battery packs.
Totally. But to play devil's advocate here, the reason why I think this is actually a threat to Tesla in the back of my head is cars are extremely inefficient. You're one person in this massive car. That's if the efficiency of that is extremely low, if you're a one passenger trip, which is 85% of trips. Cities are extremely clogged and congested because of this inefficiency of the way we use space of our vehicles. So I think, and when I think of long term at the future of transportation in cities, I think there's a tremendous opportunity for innovation of smaller form factor vehicles for us to get around way more efficiently, and that to sort of be a much bigger and growing piece of the transportation puzzle. And so that's kind of why I think always in the back of my head, I'm like, is the car what gets us around in 50 years or 20 years? Or is there a smaller one person thing that for smaller trips, it's way more efficient that unclogs cities? And so I don't know, just to push back and play devil's advocate, but that's kind of in the back of my head. I'm always thinking like, how does this evolve?
Yeah, yeah, fair point, and I think time will tell for certain. I want to make sure and give a shout out to an event that both you and I are going to be at the beginning of February, Fully Charged Live. You're going to be there, right? I think I saw February 1st and 2nd. Fully Charged Live. So I want to give them a shout out because for those that have watched this hour-long interview, if you've gotten this far, you're probably a committed and dedicated viewer of both of our channels. So if you want to see us and meet with us and chat it up with us, Fully Charged Live, February 1st and 2nd. Hit us up in the comments if you need a discount link. I think we can get that to you. Either of us can. So hopefully we see you there. And Gally, thanks for coming on again and chatting. Really appreciate it. It's always good to chat it up and talk Tesla and electric cars.
Dude, so great talking, Sean. Thanks for having me on.
Cool, man. Talk soon.